Hi, I'm Jackie and welcome to my channel, Hearth and Apron. So today you are not going to find my usual content. There will be no cooking or cleaning or DIYs, holiday or movie night fun. Instead, I'm taking you along with me as my family and I go for a weekend adventure to a literal ghost town. Now, vlogs are not my normal style of filming, so I hope you guys will be patient with me. I am just not quite as familiar as well as comfortable as so many of these fantastic ladies online, and so therefore you're not getting a lot of me talking to you in the moment during this vlog, but I still got a whole bunch of awesome shots and I just cannot wait to tell you about this beautiful and historic town that we stayed in and to show you some of the fun. So make sure and stay tuned. Okay, so I'm taking you with me on a little bit of this drive just for a second, not only because it's going to give me an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about the town that we're visiting, but also because I have a lot of people, when I tell them that I am from Arizona, assume that I am from the desert. And so I wanted to take a second to just show you the beautiful area that I live in. This is about what the topography looks like. There's a lot of pines. We have some oaks in certain places. If you go higher up, we have some aspens and firs. It is an incredibly beautiful spot. Actually, Arizona is known for its diverse climate. Let's take a second to talk about where we're going. So we're heading to northern central Arizona to the Verde Valley, where we will find Jerome, Arizona on top of Cleopatra Hill. Now, it was first as a copper claim in 1876 that was laid down by 3 prospectors when they noticed the rich copper mines and deposits in the area. So they sold that to the United Verde Copper Company in 1883, and that's when Jerome came to life and it became the bustling town and city that it grew to be and then faded away from. So, but before any of those copper mines and anything started, this area was noticed long ago. From 700 to 1125 CE, this was first home to the Hohokam people, who lived peacefully and used the different ores and metals in the mountain to create dyes for their blankets, skin, and clothes. It was later even noted by the Spanish conquistadors in 1585, but they were told to look for silver and gold, and as this area was heavily laden in copper, they kept on going. But now let's go back to once it started to turn into a bustling city. By 1883, they even had their very own post office, and in the early 20th century, they were one of the largest copper mines in the Arizona Territory. And remember, Arizona Territory, because it was one of the last continental states to join the Union. So it wasn't actually a state until 1912. Now, this town, while small in stature, actually once housed 5 different car dealerships even, and it really grew. It was one of the 4 largest cities in the Arizona area, but due to bad luck and things that we're going to discuss in this episode, everyone slowly drifted away, leaving it to have a whopping total residence of 50 to 100 people. Now, even in the 2010 census, it had a population of 444 people still. It is really just a town captured in time, I think is the best way to say it. And it is really cool because a lot of the buildings are all historical, and some of them are the ones that were built right back in the late 1800s. So if you're a history buff like I am, this is Utopia, and I'm really excited to show you all about it. So now that I've finished showing you and telling you a little bit about the town, we're going to take a quick break from that because it is time for me to show you the absolutely stunning and amazing home that we were able to stay in that has just about as much history as this amazing little ghost town itself. So welcome to the Rorden home. It was built in 1898 by the United Verde Copper Company as one of the homes that they used for their mine executives on what was known as Society Hill. Now, it is known as the Rorden home because of the John Rorden family that lived in that house for 22 years, from 1931 until July 8, 1953, at exactly 3:30 p.m. At this time, debris had clogged a water culvert above the house during a monsoon storm, causing it to rupture. Now, just before the rupture had happened, Mrs. Rorden called her oldest son down from the mine where he was working to come help at the house, and he ended up carrying his 86-year-old father out of the house as the pipes burst. They were still living in the home at the time, and once they left, they never came back ever again. The resulting landslide and water damage took out the whole west side of the house, including the bathroom and the sleeping porch where the boys' bedroom had been, and it was left just like that, completely destroyed for many, many years. Until 2012, when a contractor named Glenn Oldengard from the Phoenix area decided that he was up for the challenge. Now, he was a fifth-generation contractor, according to the Arizona Highway article, and he decided that he was going to fix this. Now, I can't say by hand how hard this was, but just getting in and out of this area must have been so difficult to bring in supplies and to just physically work on the property itself. But he did an absolutely fantastic job. This home is like a museum. It's entirely furnished with period pieces, including the 1881 wood stove, the 1917 Victrola phonograph, or the push-button lights. He really went out of his way to make sure that you were stepping back in time when you stayed in this home. And he made sure to keep the history intact by keeping up pictures of what the house looked like as it was damaged and what it looked like back in the days before it became damaged and what it looks like now. He really just went out of his way. There's actually these little plaques on the wall so you can see how high the mud and all of the rocks came up after the mudslide, which I felt like was a really cool piece of history there. In addition, having the extra little areas outside just made this above and beyond. It was absolutely amazing, and I would recommend staying at this house to anybody that is interested.
The air is much cleaner after it rains. Follow my love, the scent that's in spring air. Follow the moon into the sun. There's a call for new beginnings here. Let the sorrow of yester disappear. Let your body be new. I'm a wanderer of the soul. Before the end I plan to behold, but I know I'll lose myself along the way. What's gone is gone, what's past is past. Let me leave what belongs in the past. The road ahead is quite unclear. Let me walk it despite fear. The road stretches over the hills, and I've got many debts to pay. Some are on their own way. My pay is not gold. You can't take anything with you when you go. Is your life fading more than you know? A state of mind is set on fear. The end's uncertain, future's near. Follow voices from below. Wherever I go, there's a chain. My own shackles drive me insane. Let your body be new.
So wasn't that house so amazingly cool? I really loved staying there, and so did my family. We felt like it was a really amazing spot, and it just gave for the best view and pictures and honestly space of your own. We've stayed in Jerome before, and while we had an amazing place we stayed at, the $1 Million View that we also found on Airbnb, our balconies were right on top of each other, and I really didn't feel like there was any privacy whatsoever in our little studio that we stayed in this time. So that 2-bedroom place was absolutely outstanding. I would recommend it to anybody that has the money and wants to do something a little bit extra for yourself when you go visit Jerome. I cannot recommend it enough. From the historical attributes and all of the little details and time that were taken into this, I hope to visit this home once again. So I'm going to link the Airbnb link so that you can go stay at this amazing home as well down below. And then I'm going to show you where we head off to the Haunted Hamburger for our first bite. Now I'm just going to show you 2 restaurants because that's all that we ate at, and I felt like they were both really good, but the Haunted Hamburger definitely went over and above, from service to great food to them having the skeletons climbing the top and the sides of the buildings. They just kind of go above and beyond. You'll see that there's even a bookcase in the ceiling, which I thought was really nifty. But the Asylum was cool, and it had the aesthetic because it is built into a really historic place that I'm going to tell you about in just a minute. But let me know if you guys have ever been to the Haunted Hamburger or the Asylum in Jerome, Arizona, down below.
Give me that sweet love, those warm up and kisses. Oh, well, you are the love. Life has a quirky way. Circle breaks, we find a new day. And strangers we know become husbands. Every dance has its pace, interlaced, intertwined. Now you can't save time. Run along, kids.
Okay, so it is the second day. We actually just got there in time for dinner the night before. I'm not very great at leaving on time. Are you guys really good at punctual leaving? Because I just not a skill I have. Anyways, so we're going to be going to the Asylum, which is a restaurant inside of the Jerome Grand Hotel. And it is over on the mountainside. You can see it from anywhere in Jerome. It is huge, and that is because it used to be a hospital for the United Verde Copper Mine. It opened in 1927, and despite being closed in 1950, was the final place for over 9,000 people, they say. Now, there are no records about what happened at the hospital that are known according to Wikipedia, so there's nothing they can say to prove that, but that is what is claimed, that 9,000 people died in that building from 1927 to 1950. That's a lot of people for a small town, but that is why they say that it gives it its haunted energy. There are tons and tons of people that have said and claimed that they have seen things from beyond inside of this Jerome Hotel. There is a little guest area that you can go in, and they kind of have decorated it. You can see the original 1920s elevator that you can still use. I think that I would be too afraid, but you can still use it. And there, over in the little guest area, you can find little knickknacks and things to say I went to Jerome, woohoo! But you can actually find those all through the town. But you can't go through the hallways anymore. But a couple years ago when we came, you could actually even do ghost tours through the actual hotel. But due to respecting the privacy of their guests, they've decided to close that off. So the only area that you can enter at this point, if you are not a guest of the hotel, is that initial little greeting area and the Asylum Restaurant. Well, obviously I wanted to do something, so we went to the Asylum Restaurant, and it was good. It has the most amazing view. Wow. Crazy views. You can see the whole Verde Valley, and it just seems to be perfectly perched for the best view possible. But they only had 6 or 7 items that you could choose from, and I guess I'm a little spoiled that when I go out to eat, even though I pick the same thing every time, I like to look at a whole bunch of stuff. And if you have picky eaters, they're not going to be satisfied with that. So just a heads up, make sure to check out their menu before you go to make sure that it's your style. Now, otherwise, it was really nice. Just it was a little bit more expensive. But like I said, it was delicious. My daughter and I ended up splitting a BLT while my husband got a garden sandwich. Both tasted wonderful. Probably won't be going back just because of the lack of menu options, honestly. And the Haunted Hamburger was just so good the night before, and there's a whole lot of other restaurants in town that I would like to try out. So, it was good. It was an experience. If you want to say, like, I ate in the old haunted, like, hospital, then yeah, go do it. Otherwise, I mean, you can find a really good lunch anywhere. Sorry, Asylum Restaurant.
Freeze this hell. I was cursed, that's what I'm told. You'll get burned, that story's old. Dark sky and burning fire. I'm faster to escape these lies. Mountain water running free. Take the bad luck away from me. Wind blows like the Santa in a breeze. Take the bad luck away from me. The air is thick with snow. There's nowhere to go. Earth and soil release my fate. Take my bad luck, don't hesitate. Dark sky and burning fire. I'm faster to escape these lies. Mountain water running free. Take the bad luck.
Okay, absolute favorite part of this trip. The little stairwells and passageways and this little catwalk thing with the vines growing over top. You guys, absolute favorite part. It is private property. You can only use it if you are staying at a property that gives you access to this, but you guys, this was worth staying at that house alone. We had so much fun. So aside from being the ghost town that it is today, Jerome is most noted not only for the United Verde copper mine and the over $1 billion worth of goods that they produced out of it in their 70-year span, but also for being the wickedest town in the West. And they were acclaimed to be that by a New York magazine in 1903, and you gotta work hard to get that kind of a title. They were also called the Gomorrah of the West, with 8 brothels and over 20 saloons. They also had opium dens. There's just so much energy going on in this town. Now, one of the first brothels was by Nora Butter Brown. And there is a very illicit picture of her online, should you feel interested to see what a late 1800s brothel owner might look like. But I won't be sharing that with you today in case there are children in the room. But she actually had a very famous customer that I'm pretty sure most of you have heard the name of, Wyatt Earp. And she said that he was actually a very good customer. And once she was done in the town, she ended up selling to Jenny Botter, who's actually one of the most famous brothel owners in all of Jerome. Now, there were many though, for the record, but Jenny had a place, and it burned down 4 times in the matter of a couple of years, which is a lot on a person. But according to one of the locals, they said on the last fire, she paid off the firemen with services to help protect her space, and that it somehow seemed to remain. I don't know if that's true. That's just what one of the local people decided to tell us while we were walking around, and I thought that was pretty fun to share. But she was actually known to be one of the richest women in northern Arizona. She had a beaming business with all kinds of things, including like a little gift shop down below. So and actually if you look at the 1893 Library of Congress maps of Jerome, you're gonna notice that there's a whole lot of female boarding in a town that was 78% male. So I thought that was really interesting, and Jenny's place is one of those. And the building that was last built is still there. You can find a kaleidoscope building that is now going down beneath it. And yes, I said that right, kaleidoscope building. It's like just a whole store filled with kaleidoscopes, like huge kaleidoscopes, little kaleidoscopes, anything that your mind could think of when it comes to a kaleidoscope, I'm willing to bet you're gonna find in there. So I guess it's just always been a place to find amazing, intriguing things. But unfortunately, even being one of the richest women in northern Arizona is not a lot when it comes down to it. Poor Jenny did not end up with a pretty woman ending. So she ended up leaving and going to a town called Goldsmith, I believe, with her paramour or with this gentleman, and basically he ended up murdering her in front of the entire town, like literally out in the streets. Had enough time in between the second and the third shot to go into the saloon, refill his gun, and come back and shoot her again. So she couldn't have been very well loved due to this. I can't imagine that she had a whole bunch of wives running out there to save her, and obviously she did not. So sadly, even though there were all of these amazing places that these women were able to prosper in some ways, they weren't all the fairy tale, and there was a lot of sadness and hardship that went down in that area. But what is really funny is the prostitution actually continued in Jerome until the 1940s, well after it was illegal, right? And back in the early 1900s, they're trying to clean up the town, and so they're like, you gotta get this all off Main Street. You can't have any of these places of ill repute on Main Street. So they had to go to what was called Hull Street at the time. Now you're gonna notice when you drive into Jerome, it splits in two ways. And it's a one-way street. So you have to go down Hull Street, coming up, and then back around, and you can find your way back to Main Street. Now, what Hull Street became is known as Husband's Alley, because all those brothels were like, all right, we'll go move over here. And those buildings that were right in between all served with little like passageways and alleys and things so that their husbands could go into this reputable business on this side and sneak out the alley for some fun in the back. Now, that was also told to me by one of the residents, and I thought that was a really funny story, and I just wanted to share it with you. I'm gonna go ahead and stop blabbing and show you some more pictures now.
He was born by the roadside in a broken down.
Do you know orbs are something that are commonly supposed to depict a ghostly presence in your pictures or videos? See if you can spot any as we walk down Husband's Alley.
Of a nearby orphanage, no one saw, no one saw. You'll never know him, he is the forgotten, his name is the word.
later in the evening, my husband and I stepped out for a quick little date night, and we went to one of the local saloons. We started out at Wicked City, and I recommend it completely. It was fantastic. They had a great selection. They had wine, they had mead, they had beer, and this is a great thing if one of you are maybe like not that into wine, because Jerome seems to have a ton of wineries, one including that is owned by Maynard from Tool. But if you don't like wine like me, because you get super melodramatic, that's not helpful. But the Wicked City is, and I just go check it out and make sure to look at all the details in the building. After that, we went to the saloon at the Connor Hotel, and I mean, it was really cool, I guess. We were told that there was live music. Evidently they stopped doing that, and people were looking at me really funny because I was trying to film, so we left there pretty quick.
I shot the shades, but it's inside my mind, this dark shadow parades, and I have locked the door, bolted it down like never before. No escape there seems to be, this is what it's like for me. It's the sound of distant thunder on the plains, way under lightning crashes.
So why is Jerome a ghost town today? What is it that caused it to go from one of the 4th largest cities growing in Arizona to a literal ghost town with as much as 50 to 100 people living in it? Well, that can largely be attributed to the closing of the United Verde copper mine. And they did this in, I think, 1953, and things steadily declined after that. Now, there were things that also caused problems before, like World War II, and that was very hard on the town. World War I, it was actually booming for the copper mines because they were trying to get resources from the town itself. But in 1953, there were some giant landslides that happened, and that is actually what took out the house that we are staying in, as I told you earlier. But that had actually been happening for quite some time. By the 1930s, about a dozen buildings had literally just sank away and just fallen apart or given way down the mountain because of the loose gravel and things below them. Actually, the old jail can be found 200 feet down from where it was originally built, as the ground below it just gave way. So that also happened to the post office and many other buildings in the area. And that can be attributed, they say, to the fact that the smelter fumes caused a lot of the vegetation to die off for a large area around it, creating erosion and things of that nature, as well as the mines themselves down below creating an unstable area. So when we went to the Jerome Museum, I think it's the Douglas Mansion Museum, I don't know. We used our Arizona State Park pass to get inside, and they had a 3D image of what the town looks like and all the mines underneath. You guys, it looked like the Hive from Resident Evil. There were so many things happening below it. The town itself is so small, and the structures below just seem to go on forever and be so complex. And so that alone gives a little bit of instability to the area. Now, I don't know exactly what else went wrong to make this town just seem to die, but luckily in the 1970s, the people joined together in the 60s to kind of bring the town back to life. And that's when it became a largely artisan and winery and things of that nature kind of source. It's a giant tourist trap, but it's an amazing one. It's really cute. You're not gonna find a lot of things for your kids, but if you like history and if you like to go around and go to shops and go to wineries and not have to worry about getting the DUI because you're staying there and everything's in walking distance, perfect. Perfect. Now, one thing I will warn you about is something that I was told is called Jerome legs, where the first 2 days you're like, yes, going up and down the stairs, thinking this is incredible. There's passageways and stairwells and all of this little fun layers and exciting things. And about day 2, you start feeling like, oh wow, there's a lot of stairs. This is pretty hard. Day 3, I was supposed to get some more pictures and footage for you guys, and there was no way I was going down that hill because I could barely walk. I was like walking around, no joke, like Frankenstein's monster, like barely moving, just like, oh my gosh. I definitely should have done some more walking and like prepared myself for those Jerome legs. So that's a little bit of a warning for you. If you like to do art or take pictures and do photography, this town is incredible and it has so much to offer to you. Now, one thing that also did change since we were there last is you have to pay for all the parking now. We didn't realize this until the last day. We're like, okay, we'll go down to the bottom and park so that we can walk around and check things out before we leave town. There was literally no parking spaces. Like, we looked. We went into each one of these like little narrow parking areas and there was nothing. So it was obviously time for the universe to tell us that it was time to get the heck out of there. So even as we left, it was really cute. There was like a mariachi band playing just on the side. The night before there had been a random musician just playing some music there. This town has a lot to offer if you just want a weekend getaway. Now, we ended up closing out our night after we left that last saloon that I showed you and going back, and you guys, I took my projector and we put like, well, it's A Million Ways to Die in the West, which is an adult like comedy, but we shared that with our daughter because she's 17 years old. And anyways, we put that on a projector up on the side of the house in that little eating area up above, and it was just perfect. It was the perfect way to end our adventure. But this is where I'm going to stop talking and let you guys go. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope that you really enjoyed today's episode. Let me know what you think of it down below. And most importantly, I just hope you have an absolutely magical day. Can't wait to see you next time.
Have you seen the eyes